All right, guys. Yeah, this is going to be good. So, welcome everyone to Creative Connections. Creative Connections is a very special panel, and it is actually the last panel of the MMFM 14. So, first of all, a round of applause to all of our panelists over the past couple of days. And a shout out to all of you guys who have stuck with us for 2 days and attended and took meetings. So to all of our delegates, our MMFMers, thank you guys for being here as well. And so this is the Creative Connections. And what we're asking, and I guess it's a rhetorical question essentially, what happens when a veteran Hollywood director moves back home and links up with a talented local animation studio for an epic project? Draw your own conclusions. It sounds like an award-winning logline. I think we should make that a movie. But that is Creative Connections, and we have some great panelists with us here today. First and foremost, Mr. Joe Menendez, the writer, director, producer, worked on many amazing projects, but he's here to talk a little bit about his new Paramount Nickelodeon movie, Henry Danger. So welcome, Joe. And then his newfound collaborators here in Miami. We have Jonathan Ovalle and Thiago Levy, who is the technical and creative directors, as well as the co-founders of Team Legend Studios. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So we're going to start. We do have a couple clips because I just kind of want to set up the conversation and show a little bit more of your general work. And Joe, it's been a couple years since we've seen your reel, so I think we're going to see it again.
All right.
It's a great reel. So.
Carlos, how many times have you seen it?
Not enough is the answer.
Impatience is fear of the present. Let go of desire. Let go of fear.
Science fact, science fiction, love it all. Especially the strange. The less explainable.
Nikki.
He grabbed me. His whole hand was gonna pull my eyeballs out. His fingers were going through my skin, and then I don't know, they vanished.
To save the future, but we might have just doomed it. We're witnessing the birth of a new queen.
The true sovereign of nature, giving life, allowing life, and yet we know will be the thing that one day swallows us up. What is this? What is this banging?
Agnes, how will you survive without me?
I assume a lecture on the futility of resistance is not going to be necessary.
Am I dreaming? Or is this a nightmare? come here to save Earth, to save the entire galaxy, in fact. But to do so, it seems I need your help.
Mr. Joe Menendez, everyone. So, why don't you give us a little mini version, like we did 2 years ago, your whole origin story, like we did with your buddy JC this year, but just give us like a mini version of who Joe Menendez is and what you do in this business.
I am hi everyone. I am a director producer, born in New York but raised in Hialeah, but lived in Los Angeles for 30 years, and I was very fortunate. I've been working as a director that entire time, and the career has gone in. I never thought as a guy growing up here that would happen, and it did. And happy to get into that discussion some other time about how that happened, but it did, and a lot of it was a commitment to craft and honing the work and making sure that everything that I did was on the same level as anybody else in LA. I didn't ever want to be the guy that that wasn't as good as anybody else. So I'm still learning. I still feel, I see that and I'm still like, oh God. And so I'm a perpetual student, and but I think I've gotten to where I am, fortunately, because of my commitment to craft and honing it and making sure that it's like I'm able to tell a story with a camera. So if somebody like Carlos or Joe writes something, I want to be able to see their words and be able to tell that story with a camera and with actors. And it's a constant commitment to being able to do that as a director. And so again, been very fortunate, done a lot of things over the years. And in the last sort of 10, 15 years, I've been doing sort of more big, epic, scopy kind of stuff, visual effects stuff, action. And last year, I was hired by Paramount to do a movie based on a Nickelodeon IP called Henry Danger. And it was a sitcom that ran for about 5 seasons, very popular. And they wanted to do a straight up superhero movie version of it, where it was on par with any superhero movie. They wanted it to look and feel and sound like an elevated Marvel or DC movie. And so that's what I came in and I pitched, and they bought the way that I want my take on it. And so I was hired, and in the movie, it's sort of, without giving away too much, it's a sort of multiverse movie where Henry kind of travels through a bunch of different worlds. And one of the worlds that he goes into is an animated world. And it's kind of part of the fun of the movie, that it's all these different sort of insane worlds. And it'll all make sense when you see the movie, but he basically jumps into a cartoon world. And so I had these 2 animated sequences, and I came last year and was talking to JL about it. And JL said, you should come to the animation panel last year, because we're doing some incentives here in Miami, and maybe you'll find your animators here in Miami. And I was like, great, that'd be fantastic. And I came, and I was very impressed with everything that I was seeing here. And then JL connected me with these 2 guys. And I loved their work, and I loved everything that they were doing. So I took them to Paramount, and a little bit of back and forth, because they wanted to know who these guys were. But it turns out that these guys had done stuff for Nickelodeon already. It was just kind of this fortuitous kind of situation. They had already done stuff for Nickelodeon. They were already a known entity. So it all worked out perfectly. And so they were hired, and we are now working together. And this all started last year because of you, JL. Here, I've got these guys, and these guys are all doing the movie with me. So thank you, JL.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, JL.
Things do happen at MMFM, guys. This is living proof that these connections do matter, and they can pay off. So I want to show a little bit of your work first, and then we'll give a little bit of your origin story over at Team Legend. So bear with me a second. I'm my own showrunner. You see what I'm doing right here? All right, so it's you guys, Jonathan, just go first. A little bit about your origin, how you first got into the animation world.
Hello, yes. My name is Jonathan Ovalle, and I'm a co-founder and technical director of Team Legend Studios. I've been working in the industry for, I'd say, about almost 15 years now. And I've jumped around since, it's Miami, you jump around looking for jobs. I've worked in, advertising. I've worked in AR and mixed reality applications, all sorts of iPhone apps and such. And I would always bump into Thiago in every business because I was always hired for the technical aspect and pipeline of the animation side. And Thiago was always working on and being in charge of the creative. So we eventually got together and saved up some money and decided to just go, let's do it. Let's open our own animation studio. We rented a 125 square foot closet in Doral. And now we're working with wonderful Joe Menendez, thanks to JL, on a Paramount movie.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Hi, I am Thiago Levy. And yes, it's been a roller coaster from all types of the 2009, crash in the economy, and then the writer strikes and all this kind of the hurdles. But you see now, yeah, we're here, and yeah, you're great. I can't forget our old studio where we just worked like this. And yeah, and now we're expanding our studio, and it's just wonderful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Alrighty, so Joe, obviously, and thank you again for the kind words. You did recently move back to Miami, to the South Florida area, from 30 years in LA. So now that you've been here, I guess for a couple years, how are you doing? First of all, how are you acclimating back to the heat? And I'm sure the Cuban coffee helps and other things. So, but how are you finding the local industry so far? The local creative community here in Miami?
Great. I come here and I've already met a ton of wonderful people. There's people here that I know already that I've known for a few years. It's great. To me, I think the thing about Miami, and we talked about this last year, I wanted to actually shoot the movie here. I actually didn't want to go. We ended up shooting it in Vancouver because of the tax incentives, but I wanted to shoot it here because I truly believed that we could do it here and that the creative community here would absolutely support the movie, and not only support the movie and in terms of what the movie needed, in terms of its, in terms of it being made, but I was sure that they would thrive. Unfortunately, because Florida doesn't have the tax incentives that Vancouver and other places have, it was a purely business decision to move off to Vancouver. But I have found that there are people here who are untapped resources, and I think that what I would love, and I think we talked about it last year, that I would love nothing more than to do stuff here, make stuff here, and sleep in my own bed. They put me up. I'm very comfortable when I'm traveling. They put me up in nice places, but you're still displaced. You're still not home. So I'm acclimating just great. I love being here. It really is.
Welcome back. Jonathan, Thiago, in terms of your world, right, in animation and having this indie studio, how has it been for you guys in terms of working locally? Joe made a very good point about the lack of incentives, and I know that's unfortunately driven a lot of our industry away over the past few years. We're trying to get it back in little by little, but how's it been for you guys in terms of continuing to work out of Miami?
We never have had any incentives before T, and we felt like it was never going to come to us, and we never wanted to rely on that in the first place.
Right.
Our first intention was to make creative, creator-driven cartoons, and cartoons themselves, not really relying on technology so much, like we were saying now. Like we just wanted to bring it back and fill a gap that there was. That was our first, like when we realized, looking at the industry and working on it for such a long time, that there's too much focus on the business and all the technology and all these things, and the artistry got forgotten a little bit, and the ability to actually do the cartoons, actually make them, and the talent to actually make them was always pushed to the side. So we just realized, wait a second, we can just focus on the talent, because it's very hard to argue when something is actually good, when you can actually laugh at a cartoon.
Right.
And we had an example just now. The cartoon that was done with the most crude way got big laughs, and it was just an iPhone finger doing that.
Yeah.
And we wanted to focus on, that's a creator-driven cartoon, and we wanted to focus on that and the ability to actually make them. And that's based on, as it was said here today, to the 12 principles of animation, and that was something that was figured out a while ago, and it tends to be forgotten because you can get distracted with all these new technologies and all these things, but cartoons themselves they can be very simple, and that's our mission was, okay, let's just focus on creator-driven cartoons and our own IPs, and do also client work. And the client work that we worked on, they always focus on our own voice in it as well.
Right.
You saw our demo. It was there was a cereal company there. There were multiple music videos in there. There was a project for Puma that we actually doing another episode on. Right now, we're wrapping up the project, and they all have our cartoonists and our artists feel in there. Like our background artist, great, and his hand is in there, and all of the designs are. Everyone in the studio has a creative input.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to bring it back to the industry. And what happened was, because of that, we kind of start standing out, because sometimes you just want a cartoon that like you used to get in the 90s and the 80s and that sort of process. And we can actually do it, and we can actually develop, and we focus our studio a lot in development.
Right.
And that's how we end up working with Nickelodeon.
Huh.
Because we were doing development for serial characters for a cereal company. We developed the whole Kid Super cartoon for Puma, and we just working a lot of in development, because that's what people that can actually picture things in their heads and can actually draw. They're able to do that, and then that's what we focus. And because of that, we got all these wonderful projects and we said no to a lot of projects, because sometimes they're like soulless, and that those things we learn. And saying no to projects is very important if you have an animation studio, because they can hurt you. It did happen to us in the past, because you just spend time doing something that's not worth it, and you're not climbing the right mountain. And
a good point, actually.
Yeah, you have to climb the right mountain to get to your point. And our vision is to eventually develop our own IPs,
Right.
and we don't care if people are not buying it right now, or if people are whenever they're ready to buy, or we find, or we can just go independently. And that's our goal, like to be very aggressive in that sense. Do you have something to add?
I concur.
What would you say is your signature style? Because you talk about doing a lot of throwback and, maybe like in terms of the old kind of Warner Brothers cartoons. Is there certain styles or animation types or IP or shows that you guys feel like is your strength?
Well, right now we are working on the movie, and it. Can I say it?
Yeah. We can't. Unfortunately, I can't show anything because it's still work in progress. So I can't show anything. As much as I would love to show the work that these guys are doing, which is really amazing. And by the way, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but the animatics went through, and I signed off on them. And as typically happens with a studio, you kind of wait, like All right, we're going to get notes on the animatics. They love them. They've sailed right through each time, which is great because I'm like, I love them, but then you turn them over to the studio and you're like, I love this. What do you think? And they're like, we love it too. And so that's these guys. So, but yes, I wish I could show you what they're doing. Eventually you'll see it, but it's great.
Well, first of all, as a studio and as a cartoonist, you should be able to, and a character designer, you should be able to draw in any style that they throw at you, right? You should be able to have the ability to do that. Now, there's the stuff we want to make, and recently I was taking my daughter to her dance class, and there was a TV there, and all the kids were waiting, and I saw that they were watching something. I'm sitting on the other side, and I saw they were watching something on the TV, and they were like just like this, and I'm like, I gotta go check it out what they're watching, because I'm always paying attention on what the kids are watching and stuff like that. And when I got there, it was YouTube, and it was old Tom and Jerry cartoons.
Wow.
And the Tom and Jerry cartoons and those old Warner Brother cartoons, they had 5 people working on them. Maybe some more people doing the color, the
in-betweens and all
the
that
colors
stuff,
in between. But it was around 5 to 10 people. And nowadays you see a lot of cartoons with hundreds of names on screen. And I personally don't think that's efficient.
Right.
And I feel like there's the space for us, and that's what we aggressively got ourselves into the industry, because there was no space for us, and we had to just force ourselves in.
Create a
and how do
space,
you do it? You just do it, and you just, as we said, we just opened our closet there, and then we just you just did it. I think that answer. Oh, but our style, right? What we my personal style.
The Team Legend style.
Okay, so I grew up in Brazil, and in Brazil, because of the it costs money for TVs to put cartoons on. You have to pay the licensing to air their cartoons over there. They air a lot of old. When I was a kid, they used to air a lot of old 40s and 30s cartoons, and I grew up watching those, and that's kind of what I learned to like. Is that's, and I personally don't think that a lot of improvement in since then, in terms of the art of a cartooning, just changing too much. You got the technology side that helps a lot,
right?
And it's wonderful. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be able to do that ourselves. We got to do cells and paint, that's a pain in the ass. But so that's the influence, the old style cartoons from the 90s.
Absolutely.
Another thing we try to do in our studio is focus on a lot more, like Thiago said, a lot more traditional based animation. We do puppet animation when required, or when custom drawings are not totally necessary, and we do like to implement other 3D elements of such, but make sure it matches and it's in the same timing as the animation we're working on. Because if you do notice, for example, if you watch anime, you watch other types of shows, they tend to render at a different frame rate than the 2D animation. And it looks a little jarring, and it doesn't feel like it fits well. So those type of things we try to keep in mind, and try to keep sure that everything's well, the layouts are good. We care so much about color palettes, and our storyboards are tight, because we try to just mitigate the amount of work it requires to execute the final product.
Well said. So the reason I asked that too is because, Joe, obviously we talked a lot about pitching and being pitched yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. You gave your take on this Henry Danger project, right? And obviously
I did.
You got the gig. Mm-hmm. What were you looking for in an animation studio, and what kind of jumped out at you when you saw their reel and talked to the Team Legend guys?
All that I can react to, as whether it's live action or in this case with the animated sequences, I can only react to what I'm seeing in my head when I read a script. And as a director, I'm a big believer in the first time you read something, write down whatever you like, the image that's in your head that first pops in your head. You write that down in the margins, because that's pure. That's something that you'll never get back, and you might not write it down, keep reading the script, and then when you get to the end, it's you start asking yourself, what was that thing that I was thinking about? And so when I first read the animated sequences, to me, the way they wrote it, remember in the script, it was something else. I forget what it was. It was I forget the name of the guy. They referenced some artist who I had never heard of because I'm uncultured. I did not know who the painter was. It was like, it turns out that it's somebody well known if you're in the art community, but I didn't know who it was. But when I looked him up and I saw the paintings, I recognized the paintings. I just didn't know the artist. I'm like, oh, that style. And my first impulse was, that's not what I see. I saw something else, and what I saw were sort of Hanna-Barbera kind of cartoons, and that's kind of the Saturday morning stuff that I grew up on. I also watched the Disney ones and the Tom and Jerry ones and all that, but Saturday morning, growing up in the 80s, like I did, you would watch Saturday morning cartoons, and it was a lot of Hanna-Barbera, and it was a lot of Yogi Bear and Flintstones and things like that. So I just said, oh, it'd be fun if this was a sort of like in the 70s, Hanna-Barbera did these sort of trippy psychedelic things, and it was always like Josie and the Pussycats, and it was always like super trippy, and it's supposed to be this kind of where this character is jumping into these worlds. So I'm reading the script, and everyone's like, yeah, you're gonna do again, I can't remember the name of the artist, but everyone was talking about but anyway, but like everybody is like the writers, and sorry guys, but the writers were all like, yeah, you're gonna do it in that style, and I'm like, and then when I hired these guys, I'm like, here's what we're really gonna do. And I told them, we're gonna do like Hanna-Barbera. We're gonna do like an homage to Hanna-Barbera. And sorry writers, I just sort of ignored it. And then I presented, when you guys drew the stuff, I said, this is what we're gonna do. And everyone went, oh my God, that's great. And that was the end of that. No, but there was some other incarnations, like the production designer saw something different. She wanted to do little kid drawings, like sketches.
I remember when you guys were first talking, they were like, it's almost like like a 5-year-old was drawing.
Yeah, that was the production designer. Because anyway, there's not to bore anyone, but there's it's the multiverse. It's through the point of view of this kid that we meet in the movie. So, and she's an artist in the movie. So the production designer was like, oh well, maybe the kid drew some stuff, and that's the style. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that either. So to me, it was just Hanna-Barbera. And so when these guys came on, I said, here's what we're going to do. And then these guys, to their credit, they created the characters in that style. And when I saw it, I was instantly like, that's it. And I sent it. I just said nothing. I said, this is what I think it should look like. And everybody loved it. And it was like, oh my God, yes. And that other guy, whoever was the guy in the script, was never discussed again. That was
Yeah, it was crazy though, because we also agreed with that, because when they told us originally they wanted like this kid drawing, they wanted like the Keith Hardy design. We were like,
That's what it was.
yeah, okay,
Keith Hardy,
yeah, okay.
Keith
And in our back of the head, we're like, this is for a movie. We're gonna make this as badass as possible. We're not doing these styles.
Yeah, it was
Like, no.
And Keith Harding, that's what it was. I didn't know who that was, by the way, when I read the name. When I saw the pictures, I'm like, oh, now I know who that is, but I didn't know who it was.
And just for reference, it's just an outline. He does just like a silhouette.
Yeah. It's super minimalist, and it was just like, to me, it was taken away from the charm of what the sequence was supposed to be. So anyway, I love the take that we're doing now, so everybody does too. So Keith Haring, Keith Harding, Keith Haring,
Harry, there you go. Harry.
You're much more cultured than I am.
Yeah, so that's cool. So then, obviously,
he's
a writer.
You're just a writer.
Oh,
as we do.
Nice zinger from the crowd over there. Ignore the writer, huh?
It's a little writer-director banter. Yeah. That's why writers run television.
Right.
That's
This is film, my friend. So here we are, and so now you guys are working together, and obviously you don't direct a lot of animation, Joe. So what was it like, kind of adapting to this slightly different workflow and process of, directing or overseeing animation work versus live action with these guys?
Well, the first thing I did is I didn't try to get in their way. There's a true story. Before I became a director, I wanted to be a cartoonist, and I draw. So, and I told these guys this, and I think when I first said it, I think there was a little bit of you guys going, "Oh God, is this guy gonna draw storyboards and say this is what I want, guys? See you in a month?" But I was smart enough to know that I'm not these guys. So I can draw, and I draw my own storyboards. I really do love drawing. And I really did want to be a cartoonist prior. The reason I became a director is because my parents couldn't afford a Super 8 movie camera with single frame capability. So the camera that I had, I couldn't shoot animation. Like, my intention was, when they got me the Super 8 camera, was I had drawn all this animation, and I was going to do cartoons. And then they gave me a camera. They're like, "Here's your camera," and I was like, I was such a such a dick. I was like, this camera doesn't have single frame. And my parents were like, that's all we can afford. And, you know. But so I started directing live action. So then I was like, I guess I'll do live action. I can't do cartoons, and I never went back. So all I did with the guys is we talked about the scene, and I treated them like actors, basically. And we talked about the scene, and I said, you guys are like actors. So this is the scene, and we talked about it in detail. I'd love to see this. We talked about the Hanna-Barbera look. I'd love to see this. We talked about like specific things that we think would be funny. They pitched a bunch of things, and then I said, great, so what are you guys gonna do? And then like, we're gonna go do an animatic, and then I'll see you in a month. And I was like, great. And then they sent an animatic. Oh. And like, so basically it was these guys, the sequences, frankly, were directed by these guys. Like to me, it's like, I just gave a bunch of notes, and I said, I wanna see this, I wanna see this. They ran off, and they turned this thing in, and then like we made one adjustment, like we went through, we did notes on the thing, which I think made it better and made it more fun. And but it was you guys. It was you guys doing all the homework. So it was like, to me, hats off to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. And we've really been enjoying working with Joe, especially the fact that he's local. He's been able to swing by the studio. We've been able to get on calls really relatively quickly, and we've always been able to get communications very, very straightforward.
Yeah. And by the way, we should mention that you guys have a partner, Brittany, who's not here.
Oh yeah, shout out to
the producer, and Brittany's been great as well. She's in Austin right now. Is that where she is? Yeah. So anyway, but she goes back and forth. She goes back and forth. But anyway, she's a third member of the team. She's a producer. And also a super valuable member of the team.
Yeah, and she's actually the one that initially connected all of us. So it's great. She's awesome.
Yes, I love you, Brittany. Thank you for everything you do for us. Yeah, we actually talked. I was actually, when we started this, I actually talking to Brittany, and then I'm like, because before that, before everything, I wanted to make a Hanna-Barbera type of thing, and I'm like, get me something like that. Get me something like that, and we got lucky.
Well, here's what's interesting. So this is the Henry Danger thing. It turns out that these guys, so when like, again, this is one of those weird things. When Henry Danger, the TV series ended, there was some talks about doing a spin-off cartoon where Henry Danger left off. The character goes to the city called Dystopia, which is frankly part of the movie. But the cartoon was basically following Henry in Dystopia. These guys started to put it together, and they actually have a poster in their office of Henry, of Henry Hart, the character the movie that I was making in Dystopia. And I didn't believe him. And I remember on our first call, you brought the poster over. Yeah, and you showed it.
Yeah, it was hilarious because I remember you were like, okay, I'm going to explain to you what Henry Danger is. So this one, we're like, you don't have to. We already worked on some development before.
With the writers of the movie, John was over here, also knew about it. He's from Nickelodeon and also knew it. Like I was like, how did we? It just so John, I'm not saying anything that I'm not supposed to be saying, right? Because all right, good. Like John right now is like, dear Nickelodeon, Joe's revealing too much shit. Yeah.
Just throw a cell phone at the stage or something, and we'll know to cut
throw
it
like
out.
an orange blimp at me, and or green slime. Yeah. Green slime made to shut me up if I say anything.
For the record, I didn't say anything.
Yes.
It's me.
No one's saying nothing in here. So yeah, though this is great. And so, speaking of which, what can you talk about? Sort of where can we see it? How? When's it coming out? On what platform? How much can you say about when we can see the final product?
Paramount Plus, and I think it was always meant as a Paramount Plus movie, but the IP is a really important IP for the company, and so there's talks about it not only premiering on Paramount Plus, but at the same time premiering on linear at the same time. So right now, tentatively, it's I probably shouldn't say, but January. Is what it's looking like. It was going to be November, but Wicked and Moana around that time. So it could be January is what it's looking like now. You didn't hear from me. And but Paramount Plus and also at the same time premiering on linear. But the other thing is, and again, when it's a company like Paramount, they think globally. Sure. So if it goes in January, they can not only do a domestic release, but they can do a global release as well, all over Latin America as well. So they sort of are thinking big picture. And the Skydance thing doesn't affect anything. Like the movie, we're going to have new overlords, but it doesn't affect this right now. We're business as usual.
Yeah. And the movie will be done by then anyway. So, cool. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our audience. I know there's some questions. So